Hello everyone, my name is Reed and welcome to Storytime. Today we are going to be reading some malicious compliance stories, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Company wouldn't pay for better scanners, so I went on strike. I work for a bank that I won't name. Part of my job is largely opening new accounts. We have little mini scanners on our desks. When we open an account, ideally we would open our program, feed the ID into the scanner, and it would automatically take the information from the ID and input it into the computer. Now, unfortunately, our company won't pay for the nice scanners. The scanners we have are garbage and don't properly scan things, so usually we manually enter the information and use the printer to copy the ID. We've been doing this for over a year now. Cut to the first quarter of 2020. Corporate sends out a harshly worded email that from here on out, they will not accept our printer copies of the ID. We must use the desk scanners. I call tech. They do some stuff with my scanner and tell me it's working. A few hours later, I start opening accounts and the scanner still isn't working. I'm not one to turn customers away, so I do it the manual way. I call tech after and they tell me it's a flaw of the scanners, that the other more expensive model is almost perfect, but corporate won't shell out for them. Sucks, but tech tries to fix it and I get off the line. This happens for the next 5 accounts I have that day, and for the next week. I call tech. There's a ton of tickets. The issues persist, but I won't turn away customers and keep doing it manually. I get an email from corporate 3 days ago saying that I immediately need to start using the desk scanner and stop entering information in manually. I'm being audited, my accounts are being examined, and if I keep being insubordinate, I might get written up. I call the department and say, hey, our scanners don't work. I can't use it. They basically tell me, tough crap. So I stop opening accounts manually. For the last few days, if someone comes in to open an account, I try to scan their ID, and if the scanner doesn't work, I basically tell them, sorry, they won't let me open it manually, and give them the corporate complaint line. I turn away countless people. They're irritated. It's a mess. Guess who got the notification today that we're getting the better scanners in on Monday? OP thinks they're getting the better scanners, but wait till Monday. It is a Monday after all. I wouldn't get your hopes up too high. You want me gone in a year? Okay. I was working at a company for 5 years under a visa. The company had very quickly figured out it was easy to use and abuse people on visas and proceeded to do just that. My colleague and I were underpaid and overworked. He finally left. I stupidly believed they'd extend my papers. They initially agreed to do just that. A supervisor position opened up. I refused to cover that position without the title. I had essentially been doing that job for the past several years, and I wasn't going to keep doing it without the acknowledgement. Basically, for 2 weeks, we had no one supervising us. I refused to do what I had been doing the whole time. It was an empowering moment because I finally snapped and said I was done. The department fell into chaos. There was no one of authority between us and the CEO, and he was getting a great many calls. Finally, he sent down the HR admin assistant to let me know I could apply for the position. It was petty, as he'd personally called every other person he wanted to take the position. Both previous supervisors who held that position had recommended me, but okay, I went ahead and submitted a resume and did an interview. They gave me the position but withdrew the offer to renew my papers, which expired in a year. They told me I would have to leave in a year. Okay. 11 months later, the department is running smoothly, but I haven't heard anything about interviews or my replacement. They'd forgotten I was leaving. That's not possible, you say. After all the trauma, they couldn't possibly forget. Turns out, they very much did. When I reminded them that my visa was set to expire, I was met with anger and denial. Because it was my fault somehow, to the point the CEO refused to speak with me or look at me. And HR was begging me to stay and trying to come up with ways I could stay. There was so much denial that no replacement was interviewed or ever trained. I had been working there for so long that I had simply absorbed multiple questions, leaving me as the only one who knew certain things. My last week, I sat down with both HR and the CEO to outline everything I did. They were wounded till the end, never announced I had left or who was taking over my position as was customary. I knew because I had several friends that still worked there. Where is the malicious compliance, you may ask? The papers were expired and you had to leave. See, by this point my situation had changed. I didn't inform them of this change. I could have continued to work there, but they wanted me to leave, so I was going to leave. As of today, it has been 2 years and they have been through 4 people in my position. The current supervisor had an easily preventable critical incident occur during his watch, one that had never happened in the history of the business, within his first few months, so we'll see how long he lasts. They have to hire additional staff because the people who replaced me are very busy and unable to manage everything I did. They've also had a 100% turnover in the department through resignations. During my tenure, I had 1 resignation. It really sounds like the company was trying to be extremely cheap here, and then they ended up having to hire like 3 or 4 people after OP left. Like, I'm sure it would have been way better if you weren't complete idiots in the beginning and paid OP what they deserved, and now you're paying the price for it, so maybe you'll learn your lesson this time. I don't care. I need a different porter. I work at a wardsman in a hospital in Australia. I'm part of the radiology department, so I take people to and from their scans, tests, exams, procedures. There are other wardsmen in the hospital that have other responsibilities. Sometimes they help us out when we are particularly busy. There is a bit of contention with this as the other wardsmen take forever to help us out, usually 1 to 2 hours, by which time we've already done the work we've asked for help with or we've all finished our shifts for the day. They have to do it anyway in the second case because they have night shift rostered and we don't. This frustrates me as the patients are waiting around in our very cold department, it's kept at a colder temp because of the machines, rather than being back in their room with visitors or meals. It also puts extra strain on our radiographers as they are waiting as well. I understand that they have their own responsibilities, so I don't expect them to prioritize it over their own work. We, however, have the ability to see all the jobs on their list through the software we use for our own jobs. We can see when they are busy and when they aren't, and they are usually overstaffed for the amount of work required of them on weekends. I was working one Sunday evening and I was the last wardsman left in my department because it's usually quiet at this time. I brought a patient down for a scan and we were chatting about the usual things, where we lived, family, work, etc. She seemed like a really nice old lady. Some people can get quite grumpy after spending a while in a hospital, but she had a happy demeanor. Halfway through the trip, she said, "It's a shame you have to work on the Sabbath." I responded, "Oh, it's okay. I'm not religious." She went silent. I went silent. An awkward 5 minutes passed until we arrived. After her scan, which only took about 2 minutes, I told her I would take her back up to her room. She looked displeased. "I'd rather another porter." "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm the only one left in the department." "Well, get someone from another department." "That could take a long time. They have other responsibilities." "I don't care. I need a different porter." So I put the job on the other wardsman's work orders and went about the rest of my work. 30 minutes passed, then 1 hour, and she was still there. So I checked the job list, and there was only 2 on there, one of them being this lady, and they still had 3 wardsmen on staff. After almost 2 hours, my shift was ending, and she was still here, and to her credit, did not complain once. I checked with our nurse if he wanted me to take her back before I left. He knew the whole story, and he said, "This is what the patient wants," and told me to go home. I found out the next day that the patient had been waiting almost 3 hours in radiology for an x-ray that took 2 minutes. Apparently the nursing unit manager, boss, of the ward she was on called down asking where the patient was. Our nurse explained that the patient took issue with our wardsman and they have been waiting for other wardsmen. She called the other wardsman and yelled at them for a couple of minutes, and then they did it immediately. Not bad, OP. You managed to take out an old lady and your fellow wardsman with 1 malicious compliance. Kudos. TSA Story. Peanut butter is a liquid. Happened to me about 7 years ago. I traveled for work and they gave us a flat per diem for food. No receipts required. We would be at the same location for 1 to 4 weeks. It wasn't a great per diem, but no questions asked. So in order to bring back every penny, I would buy groceries and keep them in my hotel fridge. Also kept from becoming 20% Chili Bees Tuesday Roadhouse. I was traveling back and got to TSA screening, and after they scanned my bags, the agent informed me that the unopened 7-pound heirloom lavender peanut butter and the jelly would have to be tossed. This was a lie. It was not going to be thrown away. I could tell by the way her eyes covered it that it would not make it to the trash can. I'm pretty serious about my peanut butter and jelly, and it was not the cheap stuff. So I said I could have it back and give it to someone who was arriving so they could keep it. This was also a lie, she could tell. After she handed it back and while I was collecting my bags, we had a brief discussion on the nature of liquids. I could see she was ready to move on. Then I asked if peanut butter was okay if it was in sandwich form. With a petty glee, she said, "Of course, yes, if the peanut butter..." I saw the defeat wash over her face mid-sentence as I pulled out a nearly full loaf of bread and utensils. I was 3 hours early for my flight and had plenty of time to make my sandwiches. The other TSA officers chuckled and nudged each other as I made my way through security a second time with a bread bag of PB&Js. Yep, that's good old security for you. Can't bring peanut butter on a plane, but you can sure have that knife that you use to make the sandwiches. My dad was just doing what my mom asked of him. My parents tell this story all the time. It happened like 35 years ago. Yes, it was a bit dangerous and stupid, but that was the 80s. My mom was about 6 months pregnant with my brother, and my parents were taking their last baby-free vacation. They were taking their trailer to a trailer park for the weekend. My dad was driving the truck, and my mom was riding in the back, in the trailer. Again, it was the 80s. My dad's side of the family has a history of weak bladders, so he would generally stop every 10 minutes or so to use the bathroom. They were running behind that day, each blames the other when they tell the story, so my mom said, "No bathroom breaks until we get to the trailer park." My dad agreed, and they were on their way. About halfway there, my dad hears a loud banging noise coming from the trailer. He looks in the mirror and sees my mom holding up a sign. It says, "I need to use the bathroom." He laughs and says, "Sorry, no bathroom breaks until we get to the trailer park," and continues to drive. They make it to the trailer park, and my mom rockets out of the trailer and to the bathroom. Once she is done, she comes out and says, "Why didn't you stop?" To which my dad laughs and replies, "You said I couldn't." They've been together 35 years and seem to be still happy, so I guess it all worked out in the end. Honestly, OP's dad is a maniac. I mean, you don't mess with your pregnant wife like that. I know from experience, okay? It's scary. That's all the stories we have for today. If you liked what you heard, subscribe for more content because it's coming at you daily. Thanks so much for listening and have an amazing day.